Welcome to our immigration brief. I am Naveen Bhora, a partner at WR Immigration's New York office. I'm joined today with my colleague David Fullmer from our LA office. Hi, David.
Hi, Naveen.
So, David, what are we going to talk about today?
Today we're going to talk about a topic that's slightly different from a lot of the topics that we've discussed. Most of the topics that we discussed relate to the types of things that HR managers and mobility managers need to watch out for and need to know about. And there are a lot of them, including I-9 compliance, maintaining public access files, monitoring work sites, and changes of duties for workers on visas. There are a lot of things that HR managers need to watch out for. However, there are some aspects that HR managers can't handle on their own and where they need the cooperation and need certain information from the foreign national workforce. But for those foreign national workers to be able to cooperate and to be able to provide the information to the HR managers, they need to be educated. This information, these key points need to be communicated to them. And there are also a lot of changes in immigration that are happening on an almost daily basis. And this information also needs to be communicated to the foreign national workforce. So today we're going to talk about some of the key points where the cooperation is needed from the foreign national workers. We're going to talk about some areas where they need to be educated, where the message needs to be sent to them. And then we're going to talk about some ways best practices for communicating this information to the foreign national workforce. Naveen, can you think of some situations where the employer maybe is not able to fully handle it on their own? They need to have that information and communication with the foreign national workers?
No, absolutely. I mean, this is definitely a team effort, right? You need the full cooperation and also the foreign national employees also need to take on that responsibility as well to make sure that not only are they being compliant, but helping their employers also maintain compliance as well. And there's so much happening now, right? With the in the last 9 months, or I don't even know, I've lost track of how much time has gone by, but it seems like every week something new is being introduced or, the rules are changing so quickly, so we definitely want to make sure that everyone, first of all, has the right information, and then they're taking the necessary steps to make sure that their documents are in order. So, as an example, someone may not think that, moving, their home or their home office, is significant where they need to inform the global mobility team. So, but where you have certain people working from home and their work site is critical to their visa, because there is a labor condition application in place, that information is very relevant. So that would be an example where you do need to make sure that the folks who are on H1B and E3s, where there's an LCA, that they're keeping their global mobility team informed when there's a move in their home office.
Definitely. And, after the pandemic, many employers went to a primarily remote workforce. And I don't think that there's a lot of employees who didn't realize that where they were sitting and working really mattered. But it absolutely does. It can cause all kinds of problems. I've seen situations where the foreign national worker did not notify the HR team of the move. And then later, filling out a DS-160 at the U.S. consulate listed a different address than was on the I-129 petition. That can cause a problem. Or sometimes, the foreign national worker will notify the HR team about the move. They'll change the individual's payroll, but somehow the message doesn't get to the immigration team to do the filing. And so later, when there's an extension that's filed, that can cause actually a denial because the USCIS could claim that the person is not maintaining status because they're working at the wrong work site. So it can cause a lot of issues if everyone is not in sync relating to where the foreign national is actually working.
Yeah, and that worksite question is so critical because we also hear sometimes the employee is sent to a third party location, right? They're going to a client site. Their manager knows, everyone on their team knows, but the global compliance and the global mobility team was not informed that this person is going to be working remotely at another location for a few weeks for a project. So certainly need to keep everyone updated, and not only does the manager need to know where the person is going, but then communicate that back to the HR team and the global mobility team so that they're taking the right steps to make sure everybody's, being compliant. So, aside from changes of work site location, also any change to the job. So, if there's a promotion, which is amazing, to make sure that the proper analysis is being done to see if an amended filing is required. So, David, what do you say to people who have a change in their position?
Sometimes an individual is given an assignment or maybe an upgrade in duties, and that could come from their direct supervisor. Maybe it doesn't even come from HR. Maybe they don't even get a promotion. But in this situation, this is a case where the foreign national can help with compliance. They can bring it up and say, can you run this by the legal team to see if an amendment is required? Generally, the way I want to look at it is we're not only talking about a change in title, but if the duties substantially change, if there's a material change to the duties, then at least should be considered by the legal team to determine if an amendment is required. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but better safe than sorry. And sometimes in these days where there's a judgment call where maybe it should be amended or possibly it's not necessary, it's probably better to err on the side of caution because there is a lot of enhanced immigration enforcement currently going on. We all know about that.
Yeah. So those are potential, you know, changes or information that's relevant, that's, related to the person's job. Now let's talk about something a lot more sensitive. So some action happens in the employee's private life, right? And at what point is it appropriate to tell global mobility team or their HR team about something that happened in their home? So let's talk about arrests, right? It's a very uncomfortable
Absolutely.
topic, but has become so critical now in this current environment.
There's a new policy relating to continuous vetting of people who have visas. So if a foreign national is arrested, the visa can be revoked, even for something like DUI. And if there's any arrest history, the USCIS is sometimes using this information to issue notices to appear for biometrics while the extension of the non immigrant visa status is pending. Additionally, crimes involving moral turpitude or crimes involving domestic violence can cause visa denials and they can even make somebody removable. So, if employers and counsel don't know about these arrests, then everyone can be caught off guard and there can be huge issues and complications. There can even be situations where somebody can be put into removal proceedings, or maybe if when they travel abroad, they may not even be able to obtain the visa to return. So, if counsel and if HR knows about these issues, they can perhaps prepare legal briefs and take some steps to make sure that the worst possible thing doesn't happen.
Certainly, I think when people are, being recruited and onboarded, a lot of companies will do that background check, but I don't know how many companies continue to do that or have that policy in place where employees are supposed to inform HR or the global mobility team or the legal team when something, which may, appear to be a minor offense, right? It could be a misunderstanding, shoplifting, or it could be anything, right? But as petty or minor as it may seem to the individual, it can have huge consequences on their immigration status. And what we're also seeing are, when we are doing routine extensions, oftentimes, immigration will ask someone to go for fingerprinting biometrics to make sure that the information that they have in the system related to a potential arrest or I mean it could even be a traffic violation, that led to some kind of fingerprinting, that all that information is being shared with counsel, with immigration counsel at least, so that the person is advised on how to handle the particular matter as it happens, and then later on, how best to address it on a visa application or visa extension so that you're not blindsided and then put into removal proceedings or stuck abroad because you're not able to re-enter the United States due to a potential inadmissibility grounds. So certainly arrests, any kind of criminal matters are of concern and relevant, but also social media is something that people need to be aware of. There is a new policy on vetting people for anti-Americanism, anti-Semitism, potential sympathies towards terrorist organizations. So everyone needs to be very careful on what they're posting on social media and just to be aware that USCIS is digging and comparing folks with what's being posted online.
Yeah, absolutely. We've always thought of the United States as being a place where there's First Amendment rights, there's free speech, and absolutely there is. But if you're a foreign national on a work visa, you do need to be careful about how you post, and that's a sad reality of the current time. And the question is how to message that to the employees. I think that's a little bit tricky, but it's certainly important for them to know and to be a little bit careful when they're posting on social media because it could affect them, especially being able to obtain a visa at the U.S. consulate.
Yeah, and then also to think about their family members, right? So what if their children are posting, or their spouse? That can have consequences as well. So just not only for the employee, but their families as well who are here.
Absolutely. When individuals are here on H-1 and L-1 visas and their children are approaching 21, it's very common for them to um, obtain an I-20 and apply for an F-1 visa so that the children can attend university in the U.S. and also remain in the U.S. with the family. And F-1 and J-1 visas is really where the focus of relating to social media has been prioritized. And so, if you have these foreign national workers who have students who are university age, those students really need to understand that it's critical that they kind of behave on social media and don't post things that could be seen as being anti-American, whatever that means. They do have to be careful about their social media activity, and I think it's one thing for the foreign national worker to be careful with what they post. It's always a little bit more difficult to tell your 19 or 20-year-old what to and not what not to post on social media, and so I think this is an area that's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, and also, the rules are different, right? So what their friends may be doing and getting away with have very different consequences. For example, getting a fake ID, right? Which may seem like everyone does it in college, but that's a huge offense if your child or student gets a fake ID in college and then is then arrested for document fraud.
Um, you know, again, the college student might get the fake ID and go to a bar. They maybe would maybe possibly get arrested for underage drinking or public intoxication, drunk driving. These things are things that might be kind of common for not good, but they do happen to U.S. college students. But for a foreign national student who's trying to apply for a visa, they could be devastating. They could really eliminate the possibility of them obtaining that student visa at the U.S. consulate. So very serious.
Yeah, now let's talk about travel. Also a huge area, um, where, the just to make sure that employees are keeping their global mobility teams, informed when they are traveling. that they are checking their I-94s when they re-enter the United States, right? They're taking that personal responsibility to keep an eye on their own expiration documents. Passport expirations are also another area where some people forget that their passports are expiring, and their I-94s may be valid, but if there's a lapse in maintaining your passport, that can also be a violation of your non-immigrant status. But in addition to just, travel with proper documents, visa processing has changed a lot. So David, let's talk about how the landscape's changed on the visa side.
Yeah, it's really changed a lot, and it's kind of a moving target. Recently, the Department of State eliminated our favorite thing, which was Dropbox visa processing. So now everyone who's applying for a visa has to get an appointment and go in for an interview. So that was kind of a big shock. In the last few days, there have been updates stating that for immigrant visa processing and now for non-immigrant visas, the person needs to go to the U.S. consulate where they have residence, and they can't just forum shop. It's been very common in the past for people who are in the U.S. to try to process their visa in Canada or Mexico, and now they'll have to go all the way back to the home country, wherever that might be. And there are places like India where the appointment backlog is quite long. And so that's going to affect planning and the foreign national workforce if they need to go to a wedding or funeral or whatever it might be, and they're going to be out of the country for a while. They do need to communicate that with their mobility and HR team so that everyone's aware that they're going to be gone for a while they're getting visa stamping.
I mean, we call this TCN or third country national visa processing. For our Australian clients on E3s, we would often have them go to a U.S. consulate in the Caribbean, closer states, to the U.S. Oftentimes they would go to London, instead of having to go all the way back to Australia for that visa process. There are also certain nationalities where the validity of the visa is very limited. You may have a petition that's valid for 3 years, but the actual visa stamp is only good for, 3 months, for example. And so every time you leave the country, you do need to make sure that you're getting that visa issued. And not only that, you have to go back to your home country to do that. So I'm just thinking about, for example, a Brazilian citizen who has to go to Europe for business now needs to make a detour, go back to Brazil to get that visa in order to attend that conference or business meeting that's critical in another country.
Yes, that type of thing can be horrible if it catches someone off guard. If somebody from Brazil needs to go to Europe and then back to Brazil, it's going to cause a huge delay. And some businesses might decide not to send that person because they can't afford to have that person away for that period of time. So being aware of these things and everyone understanding the travel that's coming up and the ramifications of it is just really important these days.
Absolutely. And now, we've talked about non-immigrants who are the primary concern for global mobility people, but you also have employees on who are permanent residents with green cards or applying for naturalization, and there's been some changes there as well. So for permanent residents who are planning to travel, always want to make sure that they have proper documents as well when they're planning to return to the US. And then certainly we always encourage people to apply for naturalization if they are otherwise eligible. So let's talk about some changes to the naturalization application.
Definitely. Last month, there was a new policy released by the USCIS that discussed an enhanced focus relating to good moral character and affirmatively requiring that applicants prove good moral character. And it gave a list of factors, which included proof of volunteering, community involvement, family caregiving, involvement in charity. And we've even heard reports that the USCIS definitely favors people who are involved in church and religious organizations. And the new policy also includes checks with the neighbors, neighborhood checks USCIS talking to your neighbors to find out if you're a good person, if you're dedicated to what they call good order and happiness in the United States, and attachment to the principles of the U.S. Constitution. And the policy memo states that if you present letters from your neighbors, then perhaps they won't go into the neighborhood and check with your neighbors. So this is a new focus and something that people need to know about if they are applying for U.S. citizenship. It's also something that maybe you can't do at the last minute, so you need to be thinking about for a couple of years before you apply because it's hard to at the last minute go and get involved in a charity and get to know your neighbors and get a good reference letter if you haven't been involved in those things up until that time.
Yeah, maybe companies need to do a lot more, soup kitchens or food pantry volunteer efforts, right? And you could use that as well.
Their favorite charity, they have a volunteer day on Saturdays, and so it's important for those foreign nationals to be involved in those things.
Yeah, so much happening. How does the global mobility team or the HR team inform their employees or their workforce and make sure that they're getting all the right information at the right time? So do we have some suggestions?
Well, obviously, there's no one size fits all answer. Every organization is different. Um, some things that I've seen work well are when there are some big changes in immigration law or procedures. Sometimes companies will hold a town hall meeting, either in person or remotely, where a big announcement can be made and where the foreign national workers can ask questions. And then, some HR teams have felt that that's a little bit of a breach of confidentiality because everyone will know who's on a work visa. But other organizations have found it to be useful. Other organizations have found that having a particular tab on their website where there's a knowledge base or library of immigration information and updates has been useful. And I've had some clients that have been doing that, and that seemed to work quite well because the internet is huge. Social media has lots of information out there, and this is a trusted place where the foreign national workers can go to find valid information about the changes in immigration. And then other organizations have found that the foreign national workers are often finding out what's going on through social media, and so they're having office hours with the mobility or legal teams where the foreign nationals can bring up questions, address concerns, and talk about things that they've heard about. So there are a lot of different options. Um, what have you seen work for your clients, Naveen?
Yeah, it's really a combination of all three of those, and they're all excellent suggestions. And again, depends on what works best for your company. But certainly, just having that intranet site where you can have all these updates posted, that's probably the best. And then to go from there, right? Either doing the town halls on a quarterly basis, and then setting aside maybe one afternoon as a block time with legal counsel where your employees can set up a 15-minute office hour, so to speak, with immigration counsel and just talk about their specific issues. I think all of those would be really helpful. We've also seen some clients have affinity groups, right? And one of those affinity groups can be your employees who are on work visas because they have such unique needs and concerns and anxieties, and that may be another support group for them. So we're happy to talk through all of these with anyone. If you have any further questions on this, I know there's so much to discuss in this current atmosphere. Please drop your questions or comments and or reach out to us directly. Please stay tuned for more insights on our next session.
That wraps up this week's episode of the Immigration Brief. Please follow us on WR Immigration's LinkedIn for updates and feel free to connect with myself or Naveen directly. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.